Hello everyone and welcome back to Build for Every Block. Today we're doing a pretty good one, that being Andesite. Overall, pretty good block, nothing offensive, nothing too intrusive, just a pretty run-of-the-mill gray block. With lots of flexibility in its uses, this block finds its way into many different builds. But today, it will be the star of the show, and thus I need to show you guys how I will achieve that. So, to the reference board. So, to start off with, there are many different directions to go with this block. Castles, caves, ruins, builds that just include stone, such as medieval, dwarven, and so on. But today I'm doing a Gothic cathedral design. I felt that the large tiles that are made with smooth andesite could really allow me to create some interesting patterns with stone bricks and andesite. Obviously, Gothic cathedrals are very grey, and as such this build will be heavily into wall designs in depth, as that is the only way to really make it look more interesting than just a stone brick wall. It's obviously extremely boring. However, I am not experienced with Gothic design in the slightest, and as such I will be using many references to get the final result. The more familiar I am with a particular design, the more I can kind of just wing it. However, because I've never built anything in the Gothic style, I really need lots of different Gothic images to reference how I should make different aspects of the cathedral. As Gothic is kind of a complex style with lots of intricate parts to it and iconic styles, both interior and exterior, I really need lots of Gothic images both inside and outside of the church to really give me a better idea of how I can achieve a truly Gothic cathedral. I'm using a mixture of concept art, related photography, and high fantasy illustrations to help me create a truly stunning cathedral. Overall, there were mainly 3 images though that were particularly useful in the design of the cathedral. The first one is the entrance of the Gothic catacomb, whatever this is, not exactly what this is supposed to be. What I do know is that it looks very Gothic, so I used it predominantly for the entrance, which will be made very apparent when you see it. The other image I used was a French cathedral roof, which has flying buttresses, I referenced for part of the roof. And finally, I used this 3D render for another part of the roof towards the end. Now those ones were referenced the most, however, the other ones also played a big role, especially this one, which is from Dark Souls 1. This one helped me create an interior entranceway as it has very high looming ceilings, which I wanted to recreate. And of course, this image of a standalone Gothic arch, which I used for some of the other arches just because I wanted a better look at what exactly they looked like. And then this one was used for the centerpiece, which is a beacon to a kind of altar. And finally, I used this one for the stained glass right behind the altar, as any good cathedral has a big stained glass mural. As such, I thought I'd try my hand at making my own using the first mural, the Blue Cross, which ultimately didn't really turn out to look like a cross, but it still looked pretty damn good, so I kept it. The other images that I did not directly mention played some other minor roles in creating some parts of the interior. However, with that being said, I still need a general plan, and as such, I made a pretty primitive one using MS Paint. Because, of course. Obviously, this one isn't very descriptive, as I'm not very comfortable with Gothic designs, so I just made a relatively simple cathedral layout and used this as a base to apply other Gothic features on top of this. The more descriptive the plan, the better. However, I don't really have a good idea of what I wanted this to look like. Instead, I have some images that I want to follow, and such I made a very simple plan and let the images do most of the talking. This style of plan is probably better for designs I'm not comfortable with, as I don't know what kind of flow I want to follow, but instead just take an interactive build. Build part of it based off of a reference image, and then slowly build off of that, using it kind of as a route of sorts for the rest of the build. But you know, that's enough planning for today. So let's get building, shall we? So, to start off with, I'm going to place the overall layout of the build. This was relatively loose when I first made it. I just kind of adjusted it to what I felt would be a good size to achieve that overall very grand feeling. Very tall ceilings, tall pillars, high platforms, etc. The main section of the build I really focused on was the entrance and the entranceway. When you enter a cathedral, you should immediately feel the scale of the build, and a good way to do this is by having a good mix of both width and height. Making it lean too heavily in one direction can make it feel too empty. Making it too wide can make the entrance feel like it's missing something. Make it too tall and narrow and it feels too cramped. I felt that I achieved a good balance between the two, and that was one of the first things I really tried to nail before even working on anything else. As for the actual entrance, I for the most part tried to emulate what was shown in the reference image, as it has the look I was really going for. Big archway for the entrance and some towers next to the entrance to add some more height. From there, I slowly added some features behind the entrance, that being the flying buttresses, tall roofs, and general wall design split amongst the various walls. The palette for this build is stone bricks, andesite, both polished and not, calcite and quartz for light tones, and blackstone for dark tones. Raw blackstone, polished blackstone, and blackstone bricks were used here. The roof design is relatively simple, so I won't go into that. However, the buttresses are a different story. I created a two-tiered design so I can include them, half-slab andesite roof, and then buttresses on top using stairs to create them. I used two different designs as I felt that the first ones I made were relatively simple and small, so I wanted to add some other ones that stood out a bit more, as you'll see in the next section. This is definitely one of the stronger parts of the build in my opinion, as you can see when everything is finished. As for the interior, I created an upper platform behind the pillars, which would be used to access the front towers. The pillars here are very simple, as the individual pillar does not have to be uniquely interesting. This is a different concept to that of the amethyst pillars showcased a few episodes ago, as those are standalone pieces within the build, but these will be grouped together as a whole and should be considered as one piece. This is because the pillars here are not to be looked at, but instead to help direct the player's attention forward towards the centerpiece, as they should not stand out on their own. The ceiling here is very basic, curved design, and I use the pillars as ribs to help add a bit of depth to the ceiling. Overall, the ceiling is very tall, so adding small textural bits is not necessary. However, if you think you need to add something, you can add smooth andesite to add some extra texture. Next will be the section right before the main hall. This could be considered the mid-section of the build, and this section is pretty straightforward. A taller roof because the section is wider, however the roof design is the same. This time I used a different buttress design, however, to bring in something different, as I felt the section is slightly taller, so I felt I could get away with bigger buttresses. As for the interior, the pillars continue forward to the center of the build, and on the sides I incorporate a simple library section on either side, and continue the upper walkway, which will flow into the main section upper parts, which will also contain bookshelves, but I'll talk about that when I get there. Now for the main section of the cathedral, that being the main hall with the altar. This section is much wider, and as such I changed the roof and used the central tower as a converging point. This tower actually saves me a lot of trouble when I get inside, as you'll see very shortly. As for the exterior, it's pretty similar to what I've done earlier, same roof design with similar features around the roofs. The only difference here is the faces of the three roofs, two of them having a simple arch design with crosses, and the main one having the stained glass mosaic. As for the interior, the two sections beside the main altar will include a library section split across two vertical sections. I wanted to add these so I could fill this space, and I also wanted to add a bridge going between the two pillars, as I thought I could add some extra flavor to the peripherals. Since the roof in this section is higher, I thought I would change the pillar design. However, I kept to the main concept of the other pillars showed earlier, just because I wanted to keep everything very consistent. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the main tower adds a massive hole in the center of the room. The reason why this makes my life easier is because converging domed roofs is a pain, I'll be honest. And also having two different heights can make it kind of complex. And so just having a massive hole saves me a lot of time. So all I did was I added some simple stone brick blocks to blend the circular hole to the square cavity, and called it a day. Now for the altar design. Since the altar is a beacon, I wanted it to be fully powered. And as such, I just took the fully powered beacon and wrapped it in a stone skin. And then I added a design referencing this image here to get the overall look to it. I think it turned out really good. I think it really pulls the room together, and I think it's a great centerpiece for when you first walk into the build. And to finish off the interior, I added in the floor. Pretty basic design using andesite as a fancy tile splitter and using calcite and diorite to achieve a marble-like floor. And finally, we're going to finish this off with the tower standing on top of the roof. Overall, I think this is the weakest part of the build, but I didn't want this to be too tall, as the build is already tall enough, and I wanted the beacon light to be seen from the entrance and not from very far away from the build. So I shortened the tower on top and topped it with the same roof design from the towers in front, but modified it slightly as the beacon needs to see the sky in order to work, so I incorporated that into the design. Okay, it's done! Overall, when I think about this build, I see it as a resounding success. Mainly because I've never built something like this, both on this scale and in this style. This was really a testament to the versatility of my building style, and planning and references to pull this together. However, if I hadn't used any references, this would have been nowhere near as cool as this. However, I think it really stands strong with a really cool entrance feel. I feel like I really nailed that part. As for the other sections, I think the side library sections are really cool. However, I think I could have done more with the central tower, but overall I think it's a really strong build. But anyways, thanks you guys for watching. Make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed the build and subscribe for more from the series. Well, that's it for me. See you guys next time.